Okay, today we're looking at steps for solving multi-step equations. And what I've done is develop some guidelines for what to do first and then next and so on. So let's look at those guidelines. First of all, your goal in solving an equation is to get the variable alone on one side of the equals. And you do that so that you know what that variable equals. Okay, and as we go through these guidelines, I'm going to be talking about undoing things that are happening to the variable. And when I say undo it, I mean to do the opposite operation. So for example, if it has 3 being added to the variable, then doing the opposite operation would be subtracting 3 from both sides of the equals. So let's look at these guidelines. First of all, whatever is done on one side of the equals must be done on the other side too. So here's an example. 3 equals 3. So if I multiply 3 by 2 on one side, 3 times 2 is 6. I would have to multiply 3 by 2 on the other side so that it's balanced on both sides of the equals and it remains equal. So 6 equals 6. And I think one of the most common mistakes students make as they're solving equations is they'll start doing a whole bunch of stuff on the side that has the variable. They start undoing it and they don't do the same operation on the other side, so then their answer comes out wrong. Okay, so that's very important you do same thing on both sides. Okay, so what's the next thing? You're going to use the distributive property first when it's needed. After using the distributive property, then you combine like terms. You're going to then undo addition or subtraction. Next, you're going to undo multiplication or division. Next, when a variable is being multiplied by a fraction, to undo it, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the fraction. However, be very careful. Do not use the reciprocal of, for example, n over 4, because the real meaning of that is n divided by 4. And what's the opposite of n divided by 4? Well, the opposite operation would be multiply by 4. Okay, so let's be really careful not to mix those two up, and I'll show you some examples of that later. When solving inequality equations, if you undo by multiplying or dividing by a negative, you're going to change the direction of the inequality symbol. So here's an example. 9 is greater than 8. But if I multiply both sides by -2, I would end up 9 times -2 is -18. 8 times -2 is -16. Well, notice I had to change the direction of my sign because -18 is less on the number line than -16. It's more in the negative, so it's less. So the sign has to change. Okay, I've got some examples down here that I wanted to work for you, and I'm not necessarily going to do them in order. Let's start with this one. Notice in this one, I need the distributive property. So notice it says here, undo the distributive things first. Okay, so 3 outside the parentheses means everything inside the parentheses gets multiplied by 3. So 3 times A is 3A. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so I just use the distributive property. And now I want to show you I need to combine like terms. I'm going to identify some like terms here. Okay, and I'm also going to show in another color. This is a different term because it has a variable. These are whole numbers. So let's first, and notice the 2 in yellow. show that these two are the same kind of terms. Positive 12 minus 2 would be 10. So I did the distributive property first. Distributive property, then I combine like terms. Now I'm going to undo addition or subtraction. Okay, so let's look at that. I've got plus 10 to undo it. I will subtract 10. And remember, my guidelines told me I have to do it to both sides. Now, these cancel each other out. A positive and a negative, they cancel each other out. So now I have 3a equals 19 minus 10 is 9. Okay, next on my list is to undo multiplication or division. Remember, when we have a number standing beside a variable, the meaning is multiply a by 3. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 is divide by 3. Okay, 3 divided by 3, they become 1. 1 times a leaves a alone. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So a equals 3. Okay, let's look at another example. How about let's look at this one. We have here 1/2 times a plus 3 equals 6. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first undo the plus 3. I will subtract 3 here, subtract 3 here. Those two cancel each other out. 6 take away 3 is 3. So I have 1/2 a equals 3. All right, now I want to follow this guideline. When a variable is multiplied by a fraction, to undo it, multiply by the reciprocal of the fraction. Well, what's the reciprocal of 1/2? It is 2 over 1. So I'm going to multiply this side by 2 over 1, which is the same thing as 2. And since this side is a whole number, I'm simply going to use 2. And it's the same thing, so that's okay to do. Now, I'm going to cross cancel here. That becomes 1, that becomes 1. What I did is I divided by 2, both of these. Now 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1. This shows why we use the reciprocal. We end up with 1 times a, so we met our goal. A is alone. A equals 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, now let's look at one more. Or actually, we've got 2 more. This is another example of a fraction. We've got minus 4, so we're going to add 4 here, add 4 here. We get 9. Those two canceled each other. 9 equals 3/4 a. Alrighty, I have been told to multiply by a reciprocal, which would be 4 over 3. Let me just kind of put a line there so I know that's not a part of it. Well, what do I do over here? 4/3. I'm going to put that over a 1. Okay, and by putting it over a 1, now it's in a form that works better with a fraction. And I can cross cancel here. This becomes 1. This becomes 3. 3 times 4 is 12 over 1, which is simply 12. Okay, and here I've got 4 over 3 times 3 over 4. These are canceling to 1, cross canceling to 1. A is alone. Okay, now let's look at our last example. We've got an inequality symbol. Negative 4n minus 2 is less than negative 26. So let's follow our guidelines here. We're going to first undo the minus 2 by adding 2. Now we've got a negative here, so we're going to head towards 0 by adding 2. So we end up with negative 24. These cancel each other, and we have negative 4n. Notice I did not reverse my inequality sign yet because I didn't multiply or divide. However, now I will. I need to divide by -4, divide by -4. Notice what it says when solving inequalities. If you undo by multiplying or dividing by a negative, change the direction of the inequality symbol. Okay, so negative divided by negative becomes positive n. Negative divided by negative becomes positive 6. And that has to switch directions. So my solution set is n is greater than 6. And one thing that can help you know your solution set is to graph it. So I have 0 here, I have 6 here. If it's greater than, we use an open circle on the number line to indicate that 6 is not included, but everything greater than will be. Okay, so if you're asked, is 5 a part of the solution set? No, because it's less than 6. So we want everything greater. Is 7 a part of the solution set? Yes. Is 8? Yes. Okay. And that's examples of solving equations.